The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
For the first time in my entire life, after those 2 games, I was left speechless.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast.
Holy smokes, boys. What a weekend. What a game. I honestly don't even know where to start. Like, there are that many crazy, amazing things that happened. I guess first reactions here. I want to start here. So Saturday, for the game, we were out. We had a wedding. Wedding gets done just in time for us to watch the game with the entire, I don't know, Carter, how many people were there? Like 50 people in that basement?
Yeah, there's probably 40 to 50 people. There's a lot of Jays fans, and then there was one lonely guy on the opposite side. Every friend group seems to have a Yankees fan. Just it always happens like that. So he was in some uncharted territory. We were letting him have it, especially later on in that first game. But who would have thought it was going to go like this, right? Like that first game, again, hanging on every single pitch. They kind of blow it open later on in the game. And then you go to game 2. Like, you're a little bit worried. Max Fried, their ace on the mound. You have gotten to him this year, but who would have thought the Toronto Blue Jays were going to do that? Not sure what kind of voodoo magic they had going on there, but it was absolutely insane. Like, you have Trey Savage, absolutely dominant. Some of the swings that guy got was hilarious. Watching Aaron Judge, Stanton, Jazz Chisholm with like the check swing fly ball early on. Like, that was a hilarious one as well. And then you get a Vladdy grand slam. Dalton Varsho has 1 million bases. Like, everyone throughout the lineup, just dominant. Crazy, and I loved every single minute of it.
It was a great weekend for Blue Jays fans. Don't get me wrong. Still 1 game to go. Still got to win, but we're going to go over everything. Peters, my man, where was your head at like that entire weekend?
So I had to work at exactly 2:08 or 2 Mountain Time, start of game 1 on Saturday. So got there early, got set up, and honestly, man, it just started in the bottom of the first with the solo home run from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We know what this team has been through, like this iteration of the team, this core, John Schneider in the playoffs. And, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. personally. And that just like at that moment, I just was able to breathe a little bit. And then obviously everything Kevin Gausman did from there on in was exactly what you wanted from him, maybe more than you expected, given how he came out in game 162 and maybe it wasn't his best stuff, even though, the Jays offense certainly carried the load there against the Rays last Sunday. And, it was a little bit of a tight one for some points on Saturday, and today was the perfect baseball game. I've been watching this team for 15 years. I've never seen every facet of the baseball team deliver on such a high level at the same time, more than what I saw in the biggest moment, the biggest game the Blue Jays have played in 9 years, at home at the Rogers Center. Roof open, by the way, which was awesome. I think it would have collapsed anyway at probably several points this weekend, but with all the home runs the Blue Jays hit. But turned into a laugher, thankfully early on, and embarrassing the Yankees. There's just no better team to do this to than the New York Yankees. And I think, it's one thing that, like, obviously the Blue Jays play for the country, and we all talk about that once in a while. There's a whole lot of people south of the border that are also cheering for the Blue Jays right now, especially in Massachusetts, especially in Maryland, especially in Tampa Bay, and a lot of people that don't want to see the Yankees go any further and are becoming, Blue Jays fans, at least, through this weekend and into Tuesday, and hopefully not any longer than that. But just such a positive wave and a tsunami of momentum for the Blue Jays.
Well, even their very own Bills are cheering for the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
an absolute
Ernie Flint's a Bills guy, and then the Yankees fans were not very happy about the Bills social media team posting things. I think it was on Twitter, Instagram. There's a couple out there. The Yankees fans were not very happy about that one.
People forget the Bills played games at the Rogers Center. Like, I remember that as a kid growing up. So if you're a New York Yankees fan, you expect the Buffalo Bills to wish you good luck, like, heading into the postseason. I think you're absolutely delusional. Like,
a lot of
you got the Jets and Giants to wish you good luck. I mean, they're, standards of excellence in the National Football League. What else do you need?
That's right. A lot to get into today. We're going to talk Trey Savage. We're going to talk Vladimir Guerrero Jr., all the numbers around it. Something that's been blowing up the Twitterverse a little bit, and that is in regards to when Trey Savage was pulled. John Schneider of it all. Aaron Boone's comments about Trey Savage we'll get into as well. And you know what, guys? Let's just start there. We can sit here and say that Trey Savage was absolutely disgusting, that he was one of the best sights I've ever seen in my entire life. Brought a tear to my eye when he's talking about his parents. But I think let's let Aaron Boone do the talking for us.
Yeah, I mean, that was nasty stuff. I mean, that split is, unlike much you ever run into. And you had to go, and he was starting it up a lot, breaking it down off the plate, using his fastball enough and slider enough. But we just didn't have an answer for the split that, he was on his game.
That's not bad, eh?
I mean,
not bad stuff from the kid whatsoever.
Can I just run this down? Like, everyone that's listening to this probably, watched Trey Savage or seen like some sort of highlights. But he's 22 years old. He started this year in A-ball. Dan Schulman said this at the start of the broadcast. His first game in A-ball this year, he played in front of 374 fans. He went in front of 42,000 and a nation watching on TV and on Fox down south, people cheering for or against the Yankees. 5.1 innings pitched, 0 hits. He allowed 1 hit that was an error by Vladdy, of course, 1 runner to reach base, 1 walk in the first to Aaron Judge, 11 strikeouts. It's a Blue Jays record in the postseason, period. Not rookie record, not first career postseason game. Blue Jays postseason record. You know who he beat? David Price, Juan Guzman, Dave Stieb. You ever heard of them? They all had 8. Trey Savage had 11 today in 5 innings. And then the pop out and walking off the mound, John Schneider taking the ball, and the second curtain call of the game after Vladdy's home run, when he did it in the jacket. Just unbelievable. It's crazy. Like, I think back to our Hot Takes episode a lot at the start of the season. Like, this would have been wilder than when Dallin Wilton said that we'd win the World Series. Because that one's live. Like, that one's got a chance. This happened. And nobody saw Trey. We were talking about Ricky Tiedemann, Alek Manoah. And here comes Trey Savage. They can't print jerseys fast enough. I hope they called people into the J shop today working overtime, because, man, this guy is unbelievable. And there's no answer. Nobody has an answer in Major League Baseball for that release point, that splitter, when it backs up, everything about him. It was incredible to watch. And just to cap it off, the interview with Hazel on the field after, asked him about his family. They've watched him play in Dunedin, New Hampshire, Vancouver, everywhere this year. Yeah. And now they obviously watched his MLB debut in Tampa Bay, also at a minor league ballpark. And here he comes, Rogers Center, 42,500 people on their feet chanting his name. And no crying in baseball, boys, but that was pretty close.
Oh, no, I was full on tearing.
Pretty close. Madison Shipman said she, might have teared up a little bit. I wasn't too far off either. It's just incredible. And that's without talking about the offense. But we could spend 55 minutes talking about Trey Savage today. But it was just incredible. And I hope everyone realizes that we witnessed that. And if you were a part of that moment, if you were watching on TV, if you were lucky enough to be at the Rogers Center, I hope you carry that with you for a long time, because that's what this sport's about.
You know what? That's exactly it. It's a kid who just loves the game. And I think for this being his first experience really with the Blue Jays coming up, right? Not having any of the past trauma that we've all been through with this club a little bit. He comes in and the fans immediately love him, and he feels the support. He feels the moment. And when you're talking about locking up a guy long-term, I'm not saying that, he's going to be this, unbelievable Hall of Fame pitcher, but to have that guy and for the seed to be planted that this is how this organization treats people and the fan base treats people in the long term is going to play effect if he does become something that we all hope for. So just an amazing outing. I could go on and on about him. It's the release point to me. And I had a couple people ask me over the weekend before his start. why would they do this? Why would they bring this 22-year-old kid in for his first postseason appearance and throw him in game 2? And I said, there's teams that have no film on him, haven't seen him, and he has the biggest upside. There was people doubting me and Carter. Carter, we went on to Sportsnet a few times. People were doubting or didn't believe us when we said that Trey Savage was going to be a starter in this playoffs, which to me, this is what the possibility was, right? There was always going to be a downside that it could have gone bad, but would you rather take this upside or a guy like Max Scherzer at this point? Like, come on, right? So just an amazing day, and for him to be able to go out there and prove us right, prove and show everybody why everybody wanted him to be in this ball game, exceptional.
We talked a lot about the trade deadline, about not really having that ace and just needing somebody to step up. Not a lot of people would have had Trey Savage, obviously, at the start of the season. And it just goes back to think, like, how did 19 different teams pass up on Trey Savage in the 2024 draft? Trey Savage might be the only good thing that came out of 2024 for the Toronto Blue Jays. So we threw that entire season away just for that draft pick because, oh my goodness, it's been insane. This guy started in A-ball this year, and now, again, like you said, we just saw it in front of our eyes, setting franchise records, going out in the second playoff game at the Rogers Center, and it's just an old-fashioned just whooping. That's what that was, Trey Savage on the mound. It's incredible. Skylar used that word, and that's truly what it was. Like, not a lot of times, especially us on the podcast, we definitely like the app on here. Not a lot of times we're going to be speechless, but with Trey Savage, it was just, I was in awe the entire time. Absolutely insane. Tied for 5th all-time in strikeouts in Major League Baseball. This isn't just, again, not just for rookies, in all-time, 11 strikeouts. That is tied for the 5th best in Major League Baseball. Truly incredible stuff. The splitter, Aaron Boone said it. You could ask anybody with the arm slot. Obviously, we've heard a lot about that. The numbers are absolutely insane. The whiffs he's getting, absolutely insane. On the splitter alone, the guy had 11 whiffs. It's incredible stuff. That's all you can really say about Trey Savage at this point.
So, Carter, you brought up a great point there, but the one thing I wanted to say was you were talking about the splitter. Aaron Boone talked about the splitter. To me, the splitter's gross and it's nasty, and that's going to get people. But the fact that he can play the fastball off of that and is so effective with his fastball that pitch is able to do its job, that is what's extraordinary to me. Because, yeah, there's some guys that have crazy break. You got the Brennan Littles, but there isn't the same fastball command and velocity that Trey Savage brings. And that's what makes him so much better. Yes, we can sit here and talk about the splitter all live long day, but it's the command of the fastball as well that's going to vault him above some of these other guys that have nasty stuff.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in on the action live as it unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
The Denver Broncos clipped the wings of the Philadelphia Eagles in a stunner on the road here in Week 5. We'll break down the Broncos' big-time victory here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast.
What a game, what a victory, what a whirlwind of emotions here. It really felt like when the Broncos were down 17-3 and how the offense was playing and how the defense was playing for a good portion of this game, I think it was easy for us to just sit back there. I know I was guilty of it myself to say, we haven't seen this team claw their way out of a deficit like this. We haven't seen them compete like this in this situation. Wow, did they prove us wrong in the fourth quarter?
Cody, I just gotta applaud. I mean, this is everything that we have asked for from top to bottom, right? We're talking about winning a close game against a great team. We're talking about Bo Nix having a signature moment against a great team. Sean Payton calling the game of his life. I mean, Evan Ingram stepping up in this game. Cortland Sutton making clutch plays against a guy who has barely given up anything this entire season. I mean, we run down the list of things that needed to go right in order to win this game. I bet you if we pull up our keys to victory here in this game, Cody, every single one of them was pretty much hit in this game because the Broncos I think a lot of folks want to say you have 12 penalties in the game. It's not a pretty win. Cody, this is the prettiest win I can remember seeing in a long time, because the Denver Broncos, you didn't just go boat race some team. You went into the Philadelphia Eagles house and you kicked them out, and you sat on their couch and you kicked your shoes off wherever you want to, not even at the front door. You kicked your own shoes off wherever you want, and you put your foot up on their, their coffee table or whatever, and you took the remote away from the owner of the house and you said, screw you, this is my TV now. And you did the thing you did what the Eagles do to everybody else against the Philadelphia Eagles at their own house. Like, dude, I'm fired up about this type win right now, because I'm with you. I'm sitting there at 17-3 in this game, and I'm saying to myself, man, this is the same bull crap that we've seen. We saw this we saw the same story against the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. We saw this against the Baltimore Ravens last year, right? We've seen this story before. And even if the Broncos do make noise, well, we've seen them pee too many of these leads down their leg, or we've seen them ruin it in the fourth quarter with a play or two. This is the signature moment, in my opinion, for Sean Payton and Bo Nix.
I love the analogy you made about someone just coming to your house, making sandwiches, kicking their feet up. It's like Bruh-Man from the Fifth Floor. If you ever saw the TV show Martin, Bruh-Man was always coming. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, making a sandwich. That's what the Broncos did in the fourth quarter against this Philadelphia Eagles team. And look, it was, Sarah, being honest, like we were having some tweets. I'm probably going to be a candidate for freezing cold takes exposed, because at one point during the game, I called the offense Hackett-esque. It really felt like that. They couldn't get anything going, and it was because of negative plays, right? And it started with, Bo Nix overthrowing Trent Sherfield on one play, then getting sacked for 13 yards, and then it just led to a negative snowball to Denver's defense. But I'll say this, Bo Nix showed moxie, like to go into halftime throwing 10 of 21 for 79 yards. It was rough. And then the Broncos, they come out and they allow a score to open up the third quarter. You're down 17-3. Bo Nix in the second half was 14 of 18 passing to finish the game, over 160-something yards and a touchdown. But what was impressive in the fourth quarter when it mattered most, he was 9 of 10 passing, and 4 of those passes went to Cortland Sutton, 4 catches for 76 yards in the fourth for Sutton. This was big-time football. This was Bo Nix shaking off that rough start, saying it's not about how you start, it's about how you finished. I was impressed with his poise and his moxie. Not only did he do a great job, but my goodness, we saw different catalysts contributing to this, starting with J.K. Dobbins, who I always like the death by 1,000 paper cuts analogy, right? And maybe this just because I'm an Oregon Ducks fan. We just saw Dan Lanning do this against Penn State. But J.K. Dobbins had some runs throughout that game, even with Denver trailing. It was like, all right, that's a cut. That's a cut. Now, eventually you're going to cut, and it's going to cut deep. And then everything else opened up here for the Broncos. Dobbins punches it in, cuts the deficit 17-10, has a couple of runs, has a catch that moves the chains a little bit. And then I already mentioned Cortland Sutton, big second half for him. But my goodness, Sarah, we finally saw Evan Ingram break out and be used in the way in which we said, hey, where has this been all year? This was a great confidence booster, I feel like, for Evan. What a game from Sean Payton here. After I called him out on Twitter, and I said, the offense is abysmal. It's ugly. Defenses don't respect it. Wow. Ate a lot of crow in that fourth quarter. Through 3 quarters of play, it was brutal, and they found a way to shake it off. That's impressive. That's hard to do.
It is. I'm really glad you made the death by 1,000 paper cuts analogy there, Cody, because that was a Vic Fangio thing. And it's ironic that the Broncos were able to come into Vic Fangio's house, one of the most dominating defenses in the league, and you're able to beat these guys at their own game. I mean, I just absolutely love every aspect of it. And great call out as well on Sean Payton coaching the best game that we've seen from him, because in order to pull a team out of a hole like that, you have to have a great head coach. You have to have somebody who knows what he's doing, game management, a staff full of people that know what they're doing, and you can't give up. Like when you're down 17-3, it's easy for teams to just be like, all right, you know what? Like these guys are killing us. Like there's nothing we can do about it at this point. And then you have that one drive, like you said, where J.K. Dobbins really gets things going. He caps it off with the touchdown run. And then you have the point in the game where the defense puts the ball back in Bo Nix's hands. And how many times this season or last season did we see Bo Nix get the ball in a similar situation and the offense either go 3 and out, or, it just wasn't there. It wasn't there for them, or they had a decent drive going and they got pushed back into field goal range and they had to settle for 3. Like, no, you're down by 7 on the road against a Vic Fangio defense, against a team that's won 20 straight games. And you didn't just get you didn't just put points on the board. You didn't just put even 6 points on the board. You put 8 points on the board when you're down by 7 in the fourth quarter of a game like that. I mean, this is exactly what we've needed to see from Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos offense. They delivered in the clutch moments, like you mentioned, and I can't help but feel amazing about it.
Well, and the time of possession battle too, late down the stretch, that was key here, Sarah. The Broncos' final 3 possessions that were scoring drives, 10 plays, 64 yards. It took 4:27 off the game clock. The one where Evan Ingram caught the touchdown pass, Troy Franklin caught the 2-point conversion, 6 plays, 72 yards. 3 minutes and 32 seconds taken off. And then that last one, which obviously ended in Will Lutz kicking the field goal to make it 21-17, 11 plays, 50 yards, 3:49 taken off the clock. I thought, obviously, the factoring in the timeout situation there from Philadelphia, that if they didn't have timeouts, that number would have been bigger. Denver took control in moments where I think you and I think everyone in Broncos country as well, I think has been skeptical. It's like, can they do it? They showed us that they can do it. This right here, that close game narrative, it finally comes to a screeching halt here, right? And obviously shake off the 2 losses you had early on in the season. This is the biggest win of Sean Payton and Bo Nix's career so far. Look, Sean Payton's win against Buffalo Monday Night Football, I felt like that was the biggest win so far. But then now I think we look to where he's at now. This is by far the biggest statement win because 3-2 feels a whole lot better than 2-3.
100%. I mean, going into this game against the Jets, I was having conversations with other people too, saying like, look, we kind of penciled this game in as a loss. When we were talking about the schedule release, when we're making our season predictions, we're going game by game. You look at this game in Philadelphia and you're kind of just like okay with it. You're kind of just okay with saying, hey, pencil that one in as a loss. You'll figure out a way to 11 or 12 wins some other way. But then obviously game week comes and the optimism is flowing and, the team's 2-2. You lost a couple of games that you probably should have found a way to win. And now it just feels like it means a little bit more. I'm so grateful that the Broncos came into this and had no sort of give up mentality whatsoever. Like myself, you said it. I said it. I was texting people. I didn't put anything on Twitter because Twitter is a scary place to be during a football game. But even my text messages, even my direct messages on Slack are a scary place to be during the game. And you're just kind of saying like, you know what? You lose on the road to an NFC team. Big deal. The Broncos are sitting there like, hey, we got a little something up our sleeve here. And it's not like they saved the best for last, Cody. They just found a way to fight back. That's what I love. This wasn't like a Tebow game. This was a find a way to fight back game. And the Broncos, this is a turning point for them big time.
Nico Iamaleava silenced every doubter, every critic with a performance for the ages against Penn State.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins.
Just about, 24 hours before the game, everything was down on the Bruins. Myself, everything. Nobody could have thought that this was coming. And then Nico, because everybody says Nico has been special. Even the CBS Sports article prior to the season, special. And then I sit here like, all right, his draft stock's fallen. Not even not even an individual effort could do something if he did something against Penn State to save and resurrect his NFL draft stock. Well, I was wrong and I was a little dumb. And Nico says, hey, this is the reason I am the 5-star. Putting the Bruins literally on his back, carrying them with his legs, 5 touchdowns accounted for, 3 on the ground, and 128 yards rushing. That doesn't include the yardage lost from the sacks. And overall, a 70% completion percentage. He had a performance that not even Joey Aguilar could have done to lead UCLA to victory. No quarterback, I think, in the country could have had a performance like this, where Nico was getting popped multiple times, trying to lean in for touchdowns on the 2-point conversion, where he single-handedly raced around like you might see in a high school field on a Friday night in Southern California, found the guy wide open and kept the Bruins in front. Because if the Bruins don't get that 2-point conversion, that's a 3-point game, and Penn State, all they need is a field goal or they're driving for the win late in that game before they got stopped on 4th down. And instead, Nico comes through with one of the best individual efforts I've ever seen from a quarterback. Just the ability to keep the play alive, to keep the ball out of harm's way. Hold on to the ball. Yes, he did drop it once, picked it back up. And every single time UCLA was 3rd and long, it just seemed like he's running. And I remember someone made the comparison that I think Kyle Whittingham, that Nico is Cam Newton-esque. Well, he pulled off his Superman, did the whole showcase, the sign in the front, and then boom. It was Nico's day. Like, clearly, yes, it was a great effort by the defense to get Penn State off the field. Some receivers made some plays. The O-line stepped up immensely. It was great coaching from top to bottom. Yes, you can include the onside kick in there too. But this was Nico's day. His moment to silence everybody. You could argue it's a Heisman-esque performance. Now, yes, it's not going to happen with UCLA starting 0-4, but that's the type of dominant performance that I'm not sure we've seen from any quarterback against a team as highly touted as Penn State. Now, Penn State may be a little injury prone with what they were losing at the linebacker room into this game or during this game, but that doesn't take away from what Nico's faced, all the criticism, myself included, everybody else, where you can go see the same amount of criticism, other shows, other places, national level. But here I am. Yeah, I'll take a mea culpa. That was my bad, not realizing Nico had a performance like that in him. Nobody thought UCLA could perform up to this level with a new offensive game plan implemented just days before this game against Penn State, who is not known to go up and just give up 5 straight drives of scores. UCLA, five drives in the first half. What, touchdown, field goal, something ridiculous against the James Franklin-led team. That just doesn't happen. That just does not happen. It takes a special type of individual. Take all the criticism, all the hate from the Tennessee fans, he's probably his camp, quote unquote, working on the deals for where he might head in the offseason. But if there's just a small sliver that he could stick around and be the talented quarterback with a new coach, whether it is a Tim Skipper, we'll tease that in other episodes, or some other coach that's an offensive genius, pair him with a young, hotshot offensive coordinator, is that Jerry Neuheisel? That would get UCLA excited for 2026. There's certainly more to be developed for Nico, but that's what makes him such a young, exciting college quarterback, because he can go do something like this. I think Tennessee fans were waiting all the time for this. And it's even funnier that the time that the Tennessee fans had a bye week, they could have watched this and been like, this is going to be as bad as it gets. And instead, he rose to the occasion. Many times he was left on the turf, left down, trying to get up a little slowly from the Rose Bowl turf, and just responded every time. What was the number? I think, 2 cracked helmets against Ohio State in that playoff game where he got knocked down by everybody, including myself. Everybody talked about it. And yes, it wasn't the best of circumstances, and it's not the best of lights, whether it was his fault, his decision fully to make that transfer from Tennessee to UCLA. But he backed it up finally with this play in a Bruin legend-like moment. UCLA could go 1-11, and he could still do his individual best to keep UCLA in these games. But the fact that UCLA had a win of a lifetime against a Penn State team that has national championship aspirations, a CFP Final Four team a year ago, a team coming into the year that was top 2 in the country, off of, yes, a shocking loss at home to Oregon, but under no circumstances could there have been a performance like this that would have kept UCLA in this game, right? And instead, UCLA received, Nico goes out there and comes out and makes a play and makes another play to the tune of 3 scores on the ground, 8 yards per carry, and a run of over 50-plus yards when the game was still in the balance in the second half. And just did that over and over and over again. Reaching over, the ball's almost getting punched out of his hands. He's reaching over, getting the touchdown. 3rd and goal, 5 yards out, dives, weaves through 3 Penn State defenders, and finds his way in the end zone. And oh, by the way, one of the better throws, dropping it in the bucket in between 2 defenders to Quasi Gilmer, where I didn't even think we've seen a throw like that from Nico, hitting small windows that would impress the NFL scouts, where I think it was reported, close to 30 guys where they're scouting this game, certainly to see if Drew Aller's up to snuff, probably looking at the Penn State running backs, some of these defenders, some of these O-linemen for Penn State, and then, what's the name? Nico Iamaleava, the one that stands out, rises above everything to kind of restore his image a little bit. Now, it's going to take a lot. It really depends on how this season turns out, how the offseason turns out, because there's still the realistic possibility that as much as he will become a Bruin legend with this performance, he can go pony up. He can go get some more money elsewhere in the portal. This could have earned him an extra $1 million to $2 million in the portal. This is why he commanded that $4 million, or his camp, the idea that they went out to Tennessee. We want $4 million. We want more money. And then came out and said, that's why, with the team that clearly did not come into this game showcase any ability to protect or create the lanes and the openings for Nico to run through, or just enough time to make plays against teams that are way worse than Penn State. Yes, Penn State could be overrated for sure, but there's no way Penn State is any worse than any of the teams UCLA's plays, especially up front. And for all the hits that Nico has taken, came up and just said, yeah, no. The reason the Bruins were so successful on third downs, some of which good play calls, execution by Nico, and just the will to win. I think I saw the quote on social media. I don't know if it was the LA Times or who wrote it specifically, but Nico came out and said something along the like of, if you want to leave, leave. And Nico hasn't been touted as that loud locker room leader. But if that's truth, if he's come out and said, yeah, if you want to leave, leave, but otherwise stay here and build something in 2025, a team that has nothing to play for, which we thought could have been the case when the Bruins started 1-5 in 2024. If he's becoming that vocal leader, if he wants to embrace the Southern California fandom, spurn all the other potential offers in the offseason, say, I need another year of seasoning. And if he can become a true Bruin lifer for the 2 seasons he could stay, 3 seasons max at UCLA, him chest bumping his younger brother, that's what the vision was. Now it came off to a very slow start, an absolutely slow start. Laughable. Yes, Joey Aguilar has certainly upgraded his situation. And despite this performance, yes, Nico probably would be in a better situation at Tennessee in that offense and putting up big numbers, because Tennessee has put up big numbers in every game they've played, basically, win or lose. But there's some type of performances that Aguilar couldn't have done. When it came up to the Georgia game, they lost that game. Now, yes, they blew the lead. They missed a field goal that was easily makeable at home. But when you're kind of going 1-11 sometimes, and Nico is running around like you do at recess as a quarterback with a pass rush or in flag football, and a dude just dominates like he did, that is just a remarkable performance. And that's why he's clearly the player of the game, just making everything happen. For all the awful headlines and all the stupid, horrendous things we could have said, everything said. Man, we applaud it to you, Nico. Hats off to your performance in this game. Legendary. It'll be one that we play over and over. You go back to the Rose Bowl highlights, you see that highlight, like, man, for all the crap we took, all that nonsense we had to listen to, whether it be from me or anybody else, they're going to play that highlight of him just racing down Penn State, 10-year anniversary. UCLA, one of the biggest upsets in Rose Bowl history. And you're going to see the Nico highlights. It's going to be like, yeah, we remember the nonsense we had to deal with losing to New Mexico and UNLV and Northwestern. And, man, we got that game.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in on the action live as it unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Chiefs are going to look to take over the AFC West, or at least maintain their edge against them as they get ready for Monday Night Football, with the AFC West having played today and a new development with Xavier Worthy today.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Xavier Worthy has had an update. He has been moved due to a shoulder/ankle, which doesn't sound like it's the same injury in any way, shape, or form. He's now listed as questionable for Monday Night Football. Took me totally by surprise. I saw him on Rich Eisen on Friday. He looked absolutely fine. So there must have been something new develop. I don't know what to make of it off the top, especially with them being on totally different appendages. What's your takeaway?
Chiefs offense is in trouble if Worthy can't play. So they absolutely need him to play. But the issue is we don't know high ankle sprain, low ankle sprain, what type of issue it is with the ankle. We knew the shoulder injury. That's not a surprise. But the ankle issue is definitely something to be concerned about headed into a game.
I'm seeing speculation. I don't have this from any of the sources that I truly trust, but I understand the travel portion is what kind of spurred some of this on, some swelling in the lower body coming off of the plane. Okay, that does happen, especially given, the fact that this was your first real action last week, and now you're on a plane, traveling, etc. We're going to see. I don't know that it rules him out, and they haven't said that. Questionable does not mean doubtful. It means it's a possibility, but not a strong, over 50%. If they had gone right to doubtful, I would be more concerned. But I'm leaning towards, especially the toughness this kid has showed just coming back from this injury initially. I'm guessing, I still feel right now sitting here positive that he'll play.
You feel better about it than I do, because I look at this and going, they're putting him on the injury report. And generally speaking, when you get put on the injury report the day before the game, you're probably not playing that game. Generally speaking, that's not always the case. We'll see if that ends up being something that happens. But the bigger question to me is what happened, because I understand that maybe you get a little bit of swelling on the plane ride, but it sounds like the ankle was an issue before, which I didn't even realize he had an ankle issue. So a little interesting there.
Yeah, and we all are seeing your chats, folks. Maybe we'll have some time at the end for questions. Come back with us there. We don't know what Worthy did. We just got this news within the last half an hour before we started this live stream. And so much so I didn't even change the title of this stream. So welcome in, folks. We are talking about matchups. And the reason we preempt everything else is because Xavier was one of our prime matchups, one of the playmakers that we had to see perform in this ball game. Without him, it falls very much to a guy that has been on a roll. If Xavier cannot go, it's Tyquan Thornton's job. They still have to stretch the field. They still have to make them pay over the top. This secondary's been playing pretty good, but I feel they can still get got with speed, and I think that that's the way that they have to go. And Tyquan's put up a touchdown in each of the last 3 games.
Yep. Yeah, and I think Tyquan has shown that he can do more than what he did when he was a Patriot, and he's obviously moving in the right direction for the Chiefs. The one thing that I will say that I feel better about this than I would have a couple of weeks ago is they have Jalen Royals, who should be able to play, and that should help. Whether or not, I mean, I'm not expecting that it's going to replace Worthy. Obviously, you can't do that, but having another guy that can go out there and produce, and I do think he can produce in this offense, would be helpful.
Yeah.
The bigger question, but the bigger question is, how much of the game plan did they have just for Xavier Worthy? Because they did that week 1, and he goes out in 3 plays.
And poof. Yeah, and as much as I like what Tyquan's done in stepping up and performing the long ball and putting that pressure on the defense, all the other stuff, especially anything that is an option route, is not Tyquan's story. He cannot do that. There is no replacing Xavier unless Rasheed walks back in the door, and we know that's not going to happen. So it does narrow your possibilities. So that means Travis has to step up. It means the running backs have to step up. I hope that it means that there's enough in the game plan for Brashard Smith that you can lean on it a little bit more and give it more options, which I think is good for Brashard Smith in particular in getting those runs. So we'll see what comes of it. We also have to pay attention to the fact that because we're live on a Sunday, it's not just a normal preview. We have more intel on the rest of the AFC West. And late breaking news just within the last few minutes is, stop me if you've heard this before, the Chargers are getting hurt again. Marion Hampton in a walking boot. That significantly changes the outlook for the Chargers going down the stretch. For all of you who are tired of hearing every media member in the world pick the Chargers every year, well, guess what? Every year they get hurt to the point that they can't compete, and it looks like it's starting to happen to them yet again.
Yeah, and they already lost Joe Alt for a little bit. They already lost their starting left tackle in Rashawn Slater for the entire season, and now you're losing. Lost another running back already, Najee Harris, and now you're losing Marion Hampton. There goes my fantasy league, but who cares? And they've lost 2 in a row at this point. They were 3-0. Now they're 3-2, and Kansas City finds a way to win against the Jaguars. They are tied for first place, technically tied for first place because they will have lost to the Chargers. But the Denver Broncos are also 3-2.
They are, and the Broncos survived and beat an Eagles team this team couldn't beat. Didn't look pretty, but they did get it done.
A lot of questionable calls.
Yeah, a lot of questionable calls. Up and down performance from Bo. Really had Sutton and not a whole lot else. But that pass rush is real, and they got after it a little bit as well. So that's something to keep an eye on.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in on the action live as it unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
For the third time this season, the Mariners have overcome Tarek Skubal. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast.
But man, things just looked so bleak after the loss last night. With the Tigers stealing game 1, having Skubal going in game 2, and the Mariners overcame him twice this season, but you're thinking there's no way that they're going to be able to do it a third time, right? And they definitely didn't smoke him or anything like that, but they were able to outlast him, and they were able to get a couple of huge solo home runs off the bat of Jorge Polanco, and that's how you have to beat pitchers like this in the postseason. You have to be able to match them on the pitching side of things and just be able to scrape together a couple of runs. That's exactly what the Mariners did tonight. First playoff win for the Mariners at T-Mobile Park since 2001.
A very Mariner way to get it. Not much offense really at all. Now, granted, at least this time you were facing Skubal. So, I mean, there's a explanation for the lack of offense, but just enough. After the way Dan managed last night, which I didn't get a chance to react to, he was terrible, but far from the biggest problem of last night's game. I thought he did a pretty decent job tonight. There are a couple things you're like, probably don't really like that, but it was at least somewhat understandable. And it looks like he learned his lesson from last night too, because in the exact same situation, this time he goes to Gabe Spire, and it look at that, it worked out great. Yeah. So yeah, it was a very much a playoff baseball game. The pitching was really good on both sides. There was a big mistake that got taken advantage of by the underdog, and there was a lot of offense from the winning team came off the home run, which is also very playoff, and the atmosphere was electric, and so it just really felt like a good playoff game. Something that the Yankees and Blue Jays series has not given anybody. I mean, Blue Jay fans are complaining, but those don't look like playoff games. So the Mariners are playing playoff games, and they walk away from the first 2 games having lost home field advantage. But also, I think if you told people, on Friday, they're like, hey, the Mariners they're going to split these first 2 games. I think people would have taken it because they would have said yeah, well, I mean, they'll probably win the first one and then they'll lose to Skubal and then they'll regroup. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what order you do it in. You just have to do that. Although, it does back in my mind. I'm like, man, if you could have just scraped out a run yesterday.
Yeah.
And one more extra run yesterday.
Yeah. There's a lot of shoulda, coulda, woulda here, but
right. I mean, being up 2-0, the series is over. Yeah. And I think that's something that people need to understand. Tonight, the Mariners season was very much on the line.
Yeah.
Tonight. Again, is it impossible for them to win 3 in a row? Absolutely not. Any team in baseball can win 3 in a row against anybody. But with the major question marks surrounding who's going to pitch it on game 4 and having to beat Skubal in game 5, just to, all of that to win your 3 in a row, it was going to be extremely difficult for the Mariners. And it's still a difficult road because the questions about who's starting game 4 and if you have to face Skubal in game 5, can you beat them for a 4th time?
Well, and now you're going to their park, all that. Yeah.
And we'll talk about all that when we get there. But tonight we don't have to, because we can focus on tonight's game. We can focus on game 3, and everything after that doesn't really matter. You just have to focus on what you can control. So it's not as daunting to go and win 3 in a row. Now you have to win 2 out of 3. And you, in theory, you'll have the pitching advantage tomorrow. We'll see or on Tuesday, we'll see what Logan Gilbert you get. But it was a critical one. You had to have this one. Again, season not technically over, and I'm sure people would have coped their way into saying the Mariners are going to win 3 in a row. Just the road was so difficult if you didn't find a way to win tonight, and the Mariners did. And they give them credit; they beat the best pitcher, at least in the playoffs right now. They beat him for the 3rd time this year. They
It wasn't always pretty, but they did get him out after 7, and they did get to a Tigers bullpen that has had to throw quite a few innings over the last 5 or 6 days. And they were able to scrape together a run with their 2 biggest stars coming through and doing what they needed to do. They were the only offense they had last night. Tonight, they come through and combined to score the, winning run. And that's exactly what you need. And, it gets overlooked. Polo's the star tonight, no question about it. But there were a lot of really good performances from, big star level players that the Mariners needed, and they got tonight. And that's how you beat, the best pitcher in baseball, arguably.
Yeah. I texted you before the game that, like, if you could win this game, you would basically reverse what, the swing in the direction for the Tigers last night. Right now, they still accomplished what I think they ultimately set out to accomplish, which was to steal home field advantage from you. Yeah. Now you're in a best of 3, and 2 of those games are going to be in Detroit. But after last night and them stealing game 1, rolling out the bullpen day against George Kirby, and having Skubal go in game 2, they had to feel pretty good about going 2-0 here and heading to Detroit, just needing one more win. And the fact that you got to their guy and your pitching was just good enough to match him and even best him in terms of at least, the scoreboard, what ultimately matters, right? That to me is the Mariners taking the momentum right back from Detroit in this one. Now we'll see how that translates to game 3, especially with the day off and all that. But winning this game is so huge. And I think it says a lot about the character of this club. I talked about it with Ben last night. Like, we were going to find out a lot about the Mariners with their backs against the wall in this one. Because again, like you said, their season was on the line tonight. Yep. So winning this game, being able to punch back, going blow for blow with Skubal, getting those 2 big home runs from Jorge Polanco, also just working at bats against Skubal. Right. First 2 innings, his pitch count was in great shape. I think he was at 25 pitches while Luis was at 51. By the 4th inning, they were pretty much equal. I think Luis was at 69. Nice. And Skubal was at 62. Mm-hmm. It was just, even though, again, they didn't score that many runs. They only scored 3 runs tonight, which is just 1 more than they scored last night. It was just such a better, more quality offensive performance than the one that they had last night, against frankly, just a far better opponent.
Yeah.
So that was really nice to see that, they didn't get too down on themselves. They recognized the moment. They met the moment, seized the moment, if you will. And we'll see what happens on the, on the road now. So, but just a huge win for the Mariners.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in on the action live as it unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
What a win. What a team. Early enrollee, true freshman Malachi Toney has just been immortalized into the amazing history of the Miami versus Florida State rivalry.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes.
So let's talk about the top performers in a win. And I know it was like a tale of 3 quarters versus a tale of the final quarter. We will talk about all of it, but the most important thing, Miami dominated for the majority of that game, and they come away in a road victory. By the way, Miami wins the game by 6 points. Should have been a lot more. The game wasn't really that close. They still managed to cover the 4.5-point spread. So there is that. And I wanted to lead off with Malachi Toney because, folks, it's not lost on me just how impactful it is to have someone who just turned 18 years old a couple of weeks ago, someone who should still be in high school right now, Malachi Tony reclassified and left American Heritage a year early to be a Miami Hurricane right now. You're telling me a just turned 18-year-old playing in the first road game of his college career, playing at a ranked Florida State Seminoles, goes out there and dominates the game the way that Malachi Tony did. He is the most electric true freshman player in the entire country right now. America is taking notice. And if they weren't taking notice before last night, they're taking notice now. And when you think about, so many over the years, over the decades, right? Guys like Jeremy Shockey, Willis McGahee, Clinton Portis, Michael freaking Irvin, people who have really taken over, made big impactful plays in the Miami-Florida State rivalry and became immortalized in Hurricanes history because of that. Because this rivalry is so significant. You make plays, you win games in this rivalry, people never forget you. We'll never forget the name Darrell Langham because of that catch that he made from our friend of the show, Malik Rozier, in that 2017 game. We're never going to forget Malachi Tony. Now, Tony, for the next 3 years is going to give us, I'm sure, so many more memories for us never to forget this young man. But against Florida State, 7 catches, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns, and it could have been a lot more than that from Mally. He had another long touchdown catch that was overruled due to an illegal motion by one of his teammates, had nothing to do with Tony. And he also Malachi hauled in a deep ball from Carson Beck on Miami's first drive that was really close. Wet kind of through his fingertips. He could have been closer to 200 yards and possibly 3 touchdowns on the day. And one of my favorite of the many really good social media posts last night was from Malachi Tony's mother, who pointed out that according to her, it's no longer Tallahassee, it's now Malahassee. And her son, Malachi Tony, was one of the top graded Miami Hurricanes in that game, according to Pro Football Focus. And, folks, and we're going to talk about CJ Daniels as well, who also was on the receiving end of 2 Carson Beck touchdowns in the game. You think about how well Miami recruited in the case of a guy like Malachi Tony, getting him into the University of Miami and getting him ready to play, start, and dominate as an early enrollee true freshman. You also think about the impact of Miami's transfer portal at the wide receiver position to have a guy like 6-year senior CJ Daniels, who I think is now up to 5 touchdown catches on the year after grabbing 2 yesterday. He and Malachi Tony, an early enrollee true freshman, they're like 5 or 6 years apart. They have been the 2 most reliable targets for Beck so far in this season. And speaking of the true freshman impact, it wasn't just Malachi Tony. Bryce Fitzgerald, true freshman safety out of Miami Columbus. He grabbed his 3rd career interception in 5 games at the U. That was the first takeaway against little Tommy Castellanos. Bryce Fitzgerald grabs that interception on a 4th down play, returns the interception 43 yards. And then on the very next play, Miami runs that flea flicker, Carson Beck 44 yards to Malachi Tony for the touchdown. True freshman to true freshman, 2 consecutive plays. Goes to show you, hey, I know Mario is very into recruiting, if you guys aren't aware. Top high school players around the country. You see, if you come to Miami, you're going to have the opportunity to make an impact if you earn it. And if you work hard, you can make an impact in your first season the way guys like Bryce Fitzgerald and Malachi Tony are. We got to talk about Carson Beck. Without his poise and without the big-time throws he made, Miami maybe doesn't win that game. Carson Beck provided the professional veteran presence that we needed. 0 interceptions thrown, 0 turnover-worthy plays. We talked for the last 2 weeks when Miami's going on the road for the first time. And Doak Campbell Stadium is not a picnic to play. And although Miami does have an above 500 record at Doak, so the Hurricanes historically have dealt with that annoying war chant pretty well over the years, yesterday included, but it's not an easy place for an opposing quarterback to go. And Carson Beck pushed all the right buttons and didn't make any mistakes. That's what you get from a veteran like him who's played in Tuscaloosa. He's played in Austin, Texas. He's played in all the toughest road environments in the SEC and just played now in arguably the toughest road environment in the ACC. And Carson Beck goes 20 for 27, 241 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. completed 74% of his passes in that win. We mentioned the touchdown passes. 2 of them were thrown to Malachi Toney. 2 of them were thrown to CJ Daniels. I like how Miami was able to exploit the mismatch of CJ Daniels up against a specific Florida State corner who's probably the weak spot of their defense. Shannon Dawson did his homework. And when we talk about the defense, it's very clear that Corey Heatherman did his homework as well in that one. And listen, that performance yesterday by Carson, and it's another signature win for the Hurricanes. This is now the 3rd time this season Miami has beaten a ranked team. For all the people who bashed Miami's resume last year, oh, they didn't beat anybody ranked last year. Hurricanes already have 3 wins against teams that were ranked at the time they played them. Miami also has a win against Florida, who was ranked at the start of the season. And Florida, by the way, they're trying to save Billy Napier's job. That's what they do up there in Gainesville. They got a big home win against Texas yesterday. So maybe that Miami win against the Gators is aging a little bit better than some people thought it would. Miami already has a resume, potentially the best resume in college football right now. And a game like that for Carson Beck can only help his Heisman campaign. Because we fondly remember the quarterbacks who beat Florida State, and Carson Beck just did that. And okay, a big thing, when I talk about pick your poison, okay? Miami, or I should say FSU, they were prepared for Miami's rushing attack. Tony White's defense had some success limiting Miami on the ground. But if you take that away, Miami has an answer. Pick your poison. If Mark Fletcher isn't going to be able to gouge the opponent, Carson Beck is going to be hitting explosive passing plays to CJ Daniels, Malachi Toney, and company. And then defensively, I give Corey Heatherman so much credit. I know it wasn't perfect, right? Miami gave up some plays in the opening Florida State drive. Florida State had a lot of success, too much success in the 4th quarter. We still come away with the dub, thank goodness. But outside of that opening drive by Florida State, I thought Miami was a little bit juiced up and maybe overcommitting to some things. The Hurricanes were patient against all the gimmicks, all the misdirections, and the multiple flea flickers that came from that Gus Malzahn offense. I loved the play when Justin Scott snuffed out Mekhi Danzy in the backfield. Even though Scott didn't make the tackle, he slowed down the fastest Florida State Seminole and gave enough time to his teammates to swarm and stop that play for a loss of a couple yards. Those are the sorts of things, folks. You prepare 2 weeks for that because Miami had the bye week. You prepare 2 weeks on film to go up against all the nuances and all the trickeration of that Gus Malzahn offense, and Miami was very much ready for it. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about the top defensive performers. In fact, the top graded Miami Hurricane, it was a defensive player, but it's not the one you expect. It's not the guy who's been consistently, and who still played really well yesterday, by the way. It's not the guy who's consistently been the highest graded Hurricane all season long. We'll tell you who was the best Miami Hurricane on the field. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. State champions for the 2nd straight year.